Hello, and the question I received today is the Israeli Defense Forces, the IDF, is always accused of instigating violence, of always starting wars. And the question is that true? Is it true that the IDF deserves the accusation of instigating violence? Has that ever happened? Now, the answer is when it comes to wars, no. Israel has never started a war. What I mean by that is that Israel never on its own just decided to come out with no reason whatsoever and start a war. There are times that Israel fired the first shot, but those were justifiable because when it comes to international law, you don't need to fire a first shot to start a war. You need to do something that causes the other nation to think that it's a threat, or something like blocking off a body of water that leads to the country. That's what Egypt did in 1956. In 1967, Israel preemptively defended itself by attacking Egypt because Egypt had brought its troops up and had announced that it was about to go to war with Israel. So even though Israel fired the first shot, it never instigated the violence. There was always an act beforehand. And in fact, if you ask scholars and war experts, they will tell you that Israel has never started a war. When it comes to skirmishes, it's impossible not to say that Israel never started anything. There are times that we do start, and we start in order to capture terrorists. We start violence in order to make sure that we keep our people safe when we see terrorists coming. So there are times when it comes to small skirmishes that Israel starts violence, but that's perfectly acceptable. There's no law against that. There's nothing immoral about that. But when it comes to war, Israel has never started a war.